The first bullet tore through Chief Marcus Hale's shoulder before anyone even registered the sound, and the second screamed past Torres, splintering a thick pine trunk into flying shards. Then the forest erupted in chaos. 8 enemy snipers opened fire from high in the canopy, 30 meters above the ground, unseen and unreachable, turning the dense woods into a killing field. SEAL Team 7's designated marksman collapsed within seconds, gasping through a chest wound that bubbled with every breath. Air support was grounded, quick reaction force 45 minutes away, leaving the team pinned, bleeding, and moments from death. That was when Victoria "Ghost" Quinn, the quiet operator who'd spent 6 months on the team without ever firing a shot in anger, slid behind a mossy log, lifted her Mk-13, and methodically took down 8 expert snipers spread across 600 meters of forest in just 12 minutes of surgical, merciless precision that would later be dissected in military training for decades. Drop a comment and hit subscribe, because what you're about to witness is how one silent professional transformed a hopeless ambush into a brutal masterclass in controlled violence. The forest was so thick it could swallow an entire army, the kind of place perfect for an execution ground. 30-meter pines climbed into the dull, gray European sky, their branches knitting together to cast the ground below in constant twilight. Ferns, brambles, and slick, decaying logs tangled between the trees, every step sinking into mud that smelled of earth and pine sap, the scent of an untouched wilderness. Petty Officer First Class Victoria Quinn moved through it like a ghost, Mk-13 rifle held low, her sharp green eyes scanning the canopy. 29 years old, average height, lean and hardened by years of carrying gear through unforgiving terrain. Dark brown hair braided tightly beneath her helmet, her face showing the subtle wear of experience, not age. A look earned, not given. SEAL Team 7 advanced in tactical formation, 12 operators plus Victoria, fanned out in a loose wedge built to balance coverage and survivability. Each man carried nearly 80 pounds of gear: rifles, ammo, armor, radios, medkits, moving with that practiced rhythm that comes only from repetition and trust. Lieutenant Mason "Falcon" Hayes led the patrol, 32, a combat-seasoned officer with 3 deployments and a Navy Cross he never bragged about. The kind of leader who ate last and watched over his people first. Chief Marcus Hale, the senior enlisted, 40, rough-edged, a former Marine recon vet who joined the Navy and completed Bud S at 28, was the unit's spine, the man whose instincts kept younger SEALs breathing. Petty Officer Ryan Cooper, 25, still rode the high of surviving Hell Week, while James Torres, their SR-25 rifleman, had solid aim and discipline, if not elite precision. Petty Officer Sarah Chen, 27, a former Army medic turned SEAL corpsman, had pulled more soldiers back from the edge than most field doctors in hospitals. Their assignment was routine, simple recon. Observe enemy logistics, record movements, get out clean. The kind of mission that felt safe right up until it wasn't. Victoria heard it first, the high-pitched crack of a supersonic round slicing air, followed a split second later by the duller pop of the rifle itself. Her mind processed instantly. Sniper, elevated 300 meters ahead, front left quadrant. Then Hale grunted and dropped, blood spilling from the gap between his armor plates where the 7.62 round tore through. "Contact! Contact! Canopy!" Falcon's voice cut through the confusion. "Snipers in the trees! Take cover!" The team dove for what protection they could find, moving with mechanical precision even as chaos surrounded them. Another shot screamed past Cooper's ear so close, he felt the air punch his cheek before it buried itself in the trunk behind him with a sickening thunk. Victoria pressed her back to a fallen pine, her thoughts slicing through panic. Multiple shooters, elevated 40 meters, overlapping arcs of fire, pros with set-up positions. Another report echoed. Torres screamed as a bullet smashed into his chest, his rifle tumbling into the ferns. Chen was already crawling toward him, low and fast under incoming fire. "Jesus Christ!" Cooper yelled, unloading his M4 on full auto into the treetops, burning through his magazine. "I can't see them. Where the hell are they?" Falcon tried to coordinate, voice tight but steady, while Victoria steadied her breathing and started counting angles, wind shifts, and muzzle flashes, preparing to do the one thing she'd spent her whole career training for: make chaos obey her trigger. They tried to return fire, but you couldn't suppress what you couldn't see. "Torres! Status!" Falcon shouted. Chen's voice cracked back through the comms, tight and urgent. "Sucking chest wound. He's critical. I need evac now." Falcon keyed his radio. "Base, this is 7-1. We're in contact with enemy snipers. Multiple elevated positions. 2 urgent surgical, 1 routine surgical. Request immediate QRF and air support." The reply froze every man where he crouched. 7-1. Nearest QRF is 45 mics out. Air assets grounded due to weather. Medical evac unavailable. You're on your own. Recommend break contact and move to extraction point Delta. 45 minutes. Torres would bleed out in 15. Hale in 30. And moving meant running through a forest laced with kill zones. They were cornered, dying in slow motion. Victoria watched Chen working frantically over Torres, Hale trying to hold pressure on his own shoulder with blood-slick hands, Cooper and 3 others firing blindly into the canopy, burning ammo on ghosts they couldn't see. This exact nightmare was what she had been trained for during 2 relentless years before joining Team 7. She'd just never told anyone. Falcon's voice came through the comms, strained but controlled. "All elements. We need sniper positions identified and neutralized. We can't move. We can't stay. Those shooters need to go down." Victoria made her call. "Falcon!" she yelled, her tone cutting through gunfire like a blade. "I need 30 seconds of heavy suppression into the canopy. Doesn't need to hit anything. Just make noise and keep their heads down." From 20 meters away, Falcon glanced over, and even in the chaos, he caught something new in her voice. Calm authority, the kind that came from certainty, not rank. "Quinn, what are you—" "Sir, I can take the snipers out, but I need covering fire to reposition, and I need silence once I start. Can you give me that?" The look in her eyes made him realize the quiet operator he thought he knew wasn't who she really was. This woman was something else. "How many?" 8. All elevated, overlapping fields of fire. Professional setup. "And you think you can drop 8 snipers?" "I know I can, sir. Just trust me." Falcon's gaze swept the chaos. Torres bleeding out under Chen's hands. Hale going pale, his men trapped under invisible fire. He made his choice. "All elements. Suppressive fire into canopy on my mark. 30 seconds, then cease on command. Quinn's going to work. 3, 2, 1, mark!" 6 rifles roared at once, shredding the treetops in a storm of lead. They couldn't see their enemies, but the barrage forced the snipers to duck, to pause, to think twice. That half-minute window was all Victoria needed. She moved low and fast, sprinting 40 meters right where a rise in the ground and a fallen pine formed a natural firing position. High ground, cover, perfect sightline. Dropping prone, she brought the Mk-13 up with movements so smooth, They looked rehearsed. The 300 Winchester Magnum rifle could hit clean past 1,100 meters in open terrain, but this was far from ideal. Dense trees, broken sight lines, targets elevated between 200 and 600 meters out. She'd taken worse shots before. "Cease fire," Falcon ordered. The forest fell dead quiet, save for ringing ears and the labored gasps of the wounded. Victoria slowed her breathing, lowering her pulse, slipping into that razor-thin state of focus where everything else disappeared. Her scope rose and began to sweep the canopy, inch by inch, searching for what most never saw. Not bodies, but patterns. She looked for straight lines in a world of chaos, for a shadow too sharp, a branch swaying against the wind, the glint of something man-made. There, 10 o'clock, 38 meters up, a sniper nest built into a massive pine. Camouflage nets, woven branches, professional concealment, nearly invisible from the ground. Almost, but she saw it. The faint outline of a boot heel, maybe 2 inches visible through the leaves. 2 inches was enough. Her mind ran the math instantly. Range 340 meters, vertical offset 38, actual line of sight distance 342. Minimal wind through the understory, maybe 3 miles per hour westward, 55 degrees, humidity around 75. She adjusted her hold, aiming 6 inches low for the upward angle. Her reticle settled just beneath the spot where the boot ended and the body began. She exhaled, slipped into the space between heartbeats, and squeezed the trigger. They tried to gain fire superiority, but you can't suppress what you can't see. And Falcon barked for a status report on Torres, while Chen's voice came back tight with panic. "Sucking chest wound. He's critical. Need immediate Casevac." So Falcon keyed the radio and called base. 7-1 in contact with enemy snipers, multiple elevated positions. 2 urgent surgical, 1 routine, requesting QRF and air support now. The answer chilled every man frozen behind cover. Nearest QRF 45 minutes out. Air assets grounded for weather. Medevac unavailable, you're on your own. Recommend breaking contact to Extraction Delta. 45 minutes was a death sentence. Torres would bleed out in 15. Hale needed surgery in 30. And breaking contact meant running through forested kill zones where the shooters already waited. They were boxed in, bled and pinned, a slow unspooling of casualties. Victoria watched Chen fight to keep Torres alive, watched Hale press his hand to his ruined shoulder with shaking fingers, watched Cooper and 3 others spray the canopy with automatic fire and chew through ammo at ghosts they couldn't even see. And it was exactly the nightmare she'd been trained for during 2 brutal years before joining Team 7. The skills she hadn't told a soul about. Falcon's voice cut in over the comms, brittle but controlled. "Identify sniper positions and neutralize them. We can't move, we can't stay. Those shooters must be taken out." So Victoria made a call that sliced through the chaos. "Falcon, 30 seconds of heavy suppressive fire into the canopy. Doesn't need to be accurate. Just loud enough to keep heads down." Falcon glanced at her from 20 meters away, and something in her tone made him pause. Calm certainty, not panic. And when she said she could neutralize the shooters if given covering fire and silence to work, he realized the quiet operator he'd underestimated was someone else entirely. "How many?" he asked, only to hear the count she'd already mapped in her head. 8 elevated, overlapping fields, professional setup. And when he hesitated, she answered for him. "I know I can take them, sir. Just trust me." He looked at Torres soaked in blood under Chen's dressings, at Hale paling, at his team pinned and dying, and made a decision. "All elements, suppressive into the canopy on my mark. 30 seconds sustained. Cease on my command. Quinn's going to work. 3, 2, 1, mark. 6 rifles erupted, shredding the treetops in a wall of lead that forced the hidden snipers to duck and pause. And that 30-second hole was all Victoria needed. She moved low and fast, sliding 40 meters right to a slight rise by a fallen pine that offered cover, concealment, and elevation, dropped prone, and brought the Mk-13 up with a practiced smoothness that looked choreographed. The .300 Winchester Magnum is a rifle that sings past 1,000 meters in the open. But this was dense woods, obstructed, elevated targets between 200 and 600 meters, worse than ideal conditions. Yet she's taken harder shots. Falcon called ceasefire, and the forest dropped into a stunned hush except for ringing ears and the wounded's ragged breathing. Victoria calmed herself, slowed her pulse, and slipped into the focused stillness that separates good snipers from deadly ones. Her scope scanned the canopy with methodical patience, hunting not for bodies but for anomalies. A straight edge in a world of curves, a shadow that sits wrong, foliage that moves against the wind. And she found it at 10 o'clock, 38 meters up. A platform camouflaged with netting and woven branches, almost impossible to spot, except for the faint heel of a boot peeking through. 2 inches of boot were all she needed. The math ran in her head. 340 meters horizontal, 38 vertical, line of sight 342, minimal wind 3 miles per hour from the west, 55 degrees, high humidity. She held 6 inches low for the upward angle, settled the reticle, breathed between heartbeats, and squeezed. When the body went still and the world tightened to the gap between crosshair and chest, her finger took up slack with smooth, unflinching pressure, and the Mk-13 kicked into her shoulder. Through the scope, she watched a figure pitch from the platform, tumble through branches, and hit the forest floor 38 meters below with a sickening thud that made everyone flinch. 1 down, 7 to go. But the ambushers now knew someone hunted them, and they went quiet, stilling into even harder-to-find positions. Victoria slid back and relocated 30 meters left, because you never fire twice from the same spot. A doctrine embedded until reflex, then settled behind a cluster of rocks that offered cover and sightlines. Scope up, patient as stone, while the forest seemed empty, though she knew better. Having tracked muzzle flashes and impacts into a mental map that placed each sniper. Second target at 2 o'clock, 42 meters up, a branch sturdy enough for a prone shooter with concealment, but gaps for a bore to peer through. She watched that precise geometry without moving, waited through 30, 60, 90 seconds, then saw the branch shift under a weight redistributing, and a gap opened for a fraction of a second. She fired and watched the figure jerk and fall in slow, awful motion. 2 down, 6 to go. Morrison's voice came over the net in a tone threaded with disbelief. "Mitchell, how the hell are you finding them?" And she kept silent because words waste time and give away position, letting the rifle answer. Third target at 3 o'clock, 35 meters up and about 290 out, had been smart. Hadn't fired after the first contact. Sat stone still with near-perfect concealment. But a tiny flash from the scope's objective lens betrayed him, and that glint was a death sentence. She waited until the slightest millimeter of movement created another glint, and then took the shot. 3 down, 5 to go. Now the enemy was panicking, moving faster, sloppier, mistakes born of fear. Fourth at 12 o'clock, 45 meters up and roughly 380 out, broke cover trying to relocate and was visible for maybe 5 seconds as he crossed a thick limb with his rifle slung. Victoria tracked him, led the shot to account for motion, fired at the apex of her respiratory pause, and watched him topple, bounce through limbs like a rag doll, then hit earth. 4 down, 4 to go. And the rest had gone radio silent, either hidden impossibly well or cutting losses and running. She wouldn't let them run, so she climbed to higher ground on a rocky outcrop for better elevation and sightlines, found the fifth at 9 o'clock, 32 meters up, abandoning his perch and halfway down the trunk where he became visible against the bark. Bad tactics that made the shot almost routine. A stationary target at 310 with a clean line, and 5 down, 3 to go. Morrison called movement on the ground. 2 enemy personnel running east about 450 meters out, and Victoria had already repositioned behind a fallen tree to catch eastern approaches, where 2 figures sprinted through the woods with rifles but no cover. Reckless and exposed. At 520 range through scattered vegetation, she tracked the first runner, estimated his speed at roughly 6 meters per second over rough ground, led the aim by a meter, compensated for stronger ground-level wind, and fired. The runner tumbled, rifle skittered away, 6 down, 2 to go. The last runner saw his companion hit, panicked, and ran in a straight line along an old game trail with no concealment, stupid in his fear, and Victoria tracked him until he reached about 580, the edge of her effective range in those conditions. She adjusted for distance, wind, and uphill angle without thought, because the calculations had become instinct. Her finger found the trigger, a smooth press, perfect release. The Mk-13 spoke again, and 600 meters out, the last sniper stumbled 3 steps and collapsed face first into the ferns. 8 down, 0 to go. Victoria held her position, scope sweeping the canopy for any lingering threats, making absolutely certain no hidden shooters remained, and she stayed put for a full 3 minutes, watching, waiting, analyzing every tiny detail while the forest settled into a tense silence broken only by Chen working on Torres. Hale groaning as someone applied more pressure to his wound, and the heavy breaths of seals who just stared down death and survived. Only after that did Victoria key her radio and report crisply, "All targets neutralized. 8 enemy snipers confirmed down. Area secure. Recommend establishing a perimeter and treating the wounded while we wait for QRF." Morrison answered instantly. His tone altered. There was a new edge to it. Equal parts respect and disbelief. That stunned kind of awe you get when you watch someone accomplish what should be impossible. "Mitchell, Jesus Christ, did you just eliminate 8 snipers by yourself?" he said, and she replied steady and factual. "Yes, sir. Total engagement time approximately 12 minutes, from first shot to last." A long pause followed as Morrison processed the scope of what had happened. Then he issued orders. "All elements hold current positions. Established security perimeter. Chen's status on casualties." Chen's voice returned, still tight but calmer now that the shooting had stopped. Torres stable for the moment, chest seal holding, breathing improving though still critical, and Hale's bleeding had stopped, though his wound went clean through, and he'd need surgery. She could keep them alive until evac arrived. Mitchell confirmed she would return to security, slung her rifle, and moved back toward the team by a circuitous route that kept her under cover. As she approached, she could see the other SEALs staring at her with expressions that ranged from stunned disbelief to something bordering on reverence. Cooper, the 25-year-old, who'd been one of the loudest who questioned her, stood shaking his head slowly and admitted he'd worked with great marksmen for 3 years and had never seen anything like what she'd just done. Torres, lying on the ground with Chen's hands pressed to his chest, managed a weak smile and told her it was the most beautiful shooting he'd ever seen, saying it even as blood soaked through his dressing, and he admitted he couldn't make those shots himself. Victoria knelt, checked his color and breathing, told him he'd been hit while doing his job, returning fire and protecting the team, and he insisted he'd done what he had to. Then asked how she could see targets he couldn't find through his scope. She answered simply that it was different training and looked to Chen to see what she needed, then took over pressure duty and began prepping an IV because Torres had lost a lot of blood. Up close, Torres could see her calm, focused eyes and noted she wasn't shaking after the worst firefight of his life. And she explained it was adrenaline management, part of the training. Hale, propped against a tree, bloodied but steady, spoke up with the kind of blunt respect earned by long service. 18 years in, working with Marine Scout snipers and Army Special Forces, he declared that what she'd done, 8 targets at extended ranges through dense vegetation while under fire, was beyond standard SEAL capability, and frankly, beyond most other units as well. Morrison, having secured the perimeter, approached and told the whole team to listen up, announcing loudly that what Petty Officer Mitchell had done had saved their lives, and that without her, they'd be counting body bags, then cast a quieter question at her. Who was she really? Because the person who'd just performed that mission wasn't the same quiet teammate who hadn't fired in combat for 6 months. Victoria chose her words with care and answered that she was the same person but hadn't needed to shoot before, that this team hadn't confronted situations where precision long-range fire was the solution until today. Hayes cut in and called bullshit on the notion she learned those skills in standard SEAL sniper school, saying that kind of ability comes from somewhere specialized. And Victoria met Morrison's eyes and confirmed her service record contained classified gaps. 2 years assigned to a joint task force that specialized in counter-sniper operations, missions that hunted enemy snipers and remained off the books. Morrison absorbed that quietly. A counter-sniper unit explained a lot. Small, highly specialized teams operating in the shadows, doing work that never appeared in official reports. When he asked how many enemy snipers she'd eliminated during those 2 years, she stayed silent for a long moment, and then admitted it was more than 8, significantly more. The team absorbed the revelation in stunned silence, realizing they'd been operating alongside an elite sniper hunter without even suspecting it, and Cooper asked, genuinely curious rather than accusatory, why she hadn't told them. Victoria said it wasn't relevant. She'd joined to be part of a team, not to be a one-trick specialist, and that her previous assignment skills were simply part of her background, not her identity. Morrison nodded slowly, understanding that the work she'd done before had likely been solo or near solo, dangerous missions deep behind enemy lines that hunted the hunters and left scars some people couldn't carry. And then the QRF arrived 30 minutes later in the form of 2 Blackhawks full of SEALs and a medevac bird to take Torres and Hale away, by which time Victoria and 3 others had completed a battlefield assessment, sweeping the forest to confirm every one of the 8 enemy snipers had indeed been neutralized. The enemy team had been professional, equipped with Russian Orsis T-5000 rifles, top-tier optics, encrypted comms, and camouflage platforms built high into the trees. They knew exactly what they were doing and had likely been entrenched in that forest for weeks, maybe months, perfecting overlapping fields of fire and layered kill zones. Against a normal patrol, they would have been lethal. They'd chosen their ground perfectly, commanded every angle, controlled the terrain. What they hadn't planned for was Victoria Quinn. Each position told its own grim story. The first sniper hit clean through the chest from an angle that should have been impossible. She'd threaded a bullet through a 6-inch gap of leaves. The second punched center mass through dense foliage. The third dropped mid-motion. The fourth, while relocating between perches. Every strike was surgical, the kind of world-class marksmanship that ends up in classified training manuals under "how it's done." "Jesus," one of the QRF operators muttered, studying the eighth sight. The runner felled at 600 meters. He was moving, vegetation everywhere. This shot shouldn't even be possible. And yet, Falcon said quietly, she made it look easy. 5 days later, the debrief unfolded inside a secure facility. Victoria sat across from Falcon, now the platoon's official witness, and 3 naval special warfare officers flown in to dissect what had happened in that forest. The senior officer, a captain she recognized from JSOC circles, opened a thick folder. "Let's walk it through step by step," he said. 8 enemy snipers, elevated between 32 and 45 meters, ranges from 290 to 620. Heavy vegetation, intermittent indirect fire. Total engagement time, 12 minutes. Accurate? "Yes, sir," Victoria replied. "And you achieved 100% hit rate, 8 targets, 8 kills." "Actually, sir, 10 rounds fired total," she clarified. 8 engagements, 2 confirmatory shots after repositioning. The captain leaned back, sharing a look with his peers. "Petty Officer Quinn, I've spent 23 years in naval special warfare, reviewed every major sniper engagement in the last 2 decades. What you did out there is some of the most extraordinary precision shooting ever documented." "Thank you, sir." "The question," he continued, "is why someone with your capabilities was sitting in a platoon 6 months with no one aware of it." Falcon interjected before she could answer. "Sir, Quinn's been a model teammate. No ego, no friction, contributes across the board. She just doesn't advertise her skills." "Because quiet professionals don't advertise," Victoria said evenly. "They do the job when it's needed. Until that day, this team hadn't faced a problem that required my skill set. So I patrolled, gathered intel, pulled security like everyone else. I'm not here to stand out. I'm here to serve." The captain studied her for a moment. "Still, embedding a counter-sniper operator inside a standard SEAL platoon isn't exactly routine. Why?" She answered carefully. "After 2 years of solo counter-sniper missions, I requested a line unit transfer. The work was effective, but isolating. I wanted to be part of a team again." Another officer, a commander, leaned forward. "Those 8 you eliminated. We've identified them. A highly trained cell operating in that sector for 18 months. They were responsible for 23 coalition deaths before you stopped them. You didn't just save your team. You wiped out a threat that's haunted us for over a year. 23 lives." Victoria absorbed that, her expression unchanged. "Understood, sir." The captain closed the folder. "Petty Officer Quinn, here's what's going to happen. You are officially designated SEAL Team 7's primary precision marksman and will continue deploying with the platoon on every op. But when missions call for long-range, dedicated precision fire, you become our asset. You'll also run sniper training to raise the platoon's baseline. And yes, the forest engagement is being written up for a Navy Commendation Medal with Valor device, while Morrison has recommended you for a Silver Star that's under review. So accept the recognition because your actions saved 12 lives and removed a major threat." That evening back at the compound, while Victoria field-stripped her MK-13, Cooper came over and asked quietly how many missions she'd flown with the counter-sniper unit. She thought about it, then said roughly 87 missions in 2 years, some single target, some multiple, and usually solo or with only a spotter, deep insertions, long-duration observations, precision eliminations of snipers who were killing coalition forces, which left Cooper stunned because most guys on the team had maybe 5 or 6 combat engagements with their primary weapon, while she'd run nearly 90 specialized sniper missions. He sat down and apologized for doubting her, admitting they'd questioned her because they'd never seen her shoot in anger, and she said there was no need for apology. This community proves itself by performance, and she simply hadn't had the opening to show that skill until now. Hayes, back from surgery, already told everyone she was the best sniper he'd ever worked with. Torres, who would fully recover, offered to buy her a case of beer, and Morrison made it clear to the platoon that anyone who questioned her again would answer to him. Though Victoria smiled and said she didn't need anyone defending her because the work speaks for itself. That's precisely what Hayes predicted she'd say. After Cooper left, she finished cleaning her rifle, went to the long-range facility, set up at 600 meters on the 1,000-meter line, and fired 5 rounds slow and deliberate to verify 0, 5 shots inside 2 inches at center. Perfect. Then Morrison found her packing gear and noted most people would be decompressing after saving so many lives, while she chose to practice because shooting is perishable, and you use it or you lose it. He asked about downtime with the counter-sniper unit, and she explained they sometimes did 3 or 4 missions a week, and other times waited 2 weeks for the right opportunity. But when off mission, they trained every day, thousands of rounds, honing technique and pushing limits. So now with Team 7, where sniper missions are rare, she knew what she'd signed up for. Team operations, not permanent solo work. And the fact her skill set was needed that day was fortunate timing that saved a dozen lives. Morrison grinned and said the task force was already calling her Ghost because the 8 enemy snipers never knew what hit them. And though she said she didn't need a call sign, it stuck. The quiet professional who removed 8 targets in 12 minutes became a legend across the task force, and Morrison walked her back to the compound as the sun set over the European forest that had nearly been their graveyard. "Mitchell," Falcon said quietly, "in that forest when Hale and Torres went down and we were trapped in that kill zone, I was running every scenario in my head, and none of them ended well. We were going to take heavy losses, maybe half the team gone before QRF could even get to us if you hadn't done what you did." She replied simply, "That's what teammates do, sir. You gave me the covering fire I needed. I did my part. We handled it together." Falcon nodded, though they both knew the truth. Without Victoria's precision and discipline, the team would have been methodically wiped out by professionals who held every advantage. She had saved them, all of them, and done it so quietly, so efficiently, that after 6 months of serving beside her, they'd never realized what kind of weapon they had in their ranks until the moment it mattered most. Word of the engagement in that European forest spread through the naval special warfare community like wildfire. The designated marksman nobody really knew turned out to be an elite counter-sniper operator. The quiet professional who single-handedly eliminated 8 enemy sharpshooters in 12 minutes, while her team was pinned and bleeding. Petty Officer First Class Victoria Ghost Quinn became legend almost overnight. Though she avoided the spotlight, she kept deploying with SEAL Team 7, still the same calm, reliable teammate she had always been. Except now, when precision fire was needed, everyone knew exactly who to call. She never spoke of her time with the counter-sniper unit, never mentioned the 87 missions or the number of enemy snipers she'd ended, never sought attention or praise. She simply worked when the work called, embodying exactly what quiet professionals stood for. Years later, at the Naval Special Warfare Sniper School, instructors taught her forest engagement as a case study. 8 confirmed kills in 12 minutes through dense canopy under live combat stress. and always closed the lesson the same way. Never judge a shooter by how often they fire. Judge them by what happens when they do. The best operators are the quietest, the ones who don't seek validation because they already know what they're capable of. They wait for the one moment that counts and then execute with such ruthless precision, it looks effortless. Victoria Quinn had gone 6 months without pulling a trigger in combat, and then in 12 minutes of perfect marksmanship, she reminded everyone why the quiet ones are always the most dangerous. Those enemy snipers had been experts, well-trained, well-positioned, commanding perfect fields of fire. But they made one fatal mistake. They assumed that because they couldn't see the threat couldn't see them. They assumed that because Victoria Quinn had stayed silent, she wasn't a danger. They assumed wrong, and in the unforgiving math of war, wrong assumptions get you killed. 8 shots, 8 targets, 12 minutes, and a masterclass in why you never, ever underestimate the quiet professional with a long rifle. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe for more extraordinary tales of courage, only on Captain Joe's Stories.